So we're going to randomly and distressingly start standing up today. A little bit for the heart. Not that that means we're going to get terribly strenuous, but just a little movement for the heart. So when you are ready to come to stand, and if you're comfortable with eyes closed, close your eyes. If you're comfortable with eyes open, leave your eyes open. And spread your toes a little over the floor. And just notice what you notice. And then particularly notice the contact of your feet on the floor. And notice particularly then your instep, the hollow on the sole of the foot. And at the same time, could you notice the palms of your hands? Palms of the hands and the insteps. And a sense of the tenderness of that skin there, the delicacy and softness of the insteps and the palms. And then imagining the connection from your insteps and your palms to your heart. Almost like maybe a stick drawing in a way. A line from each palm to the heart through the arms, and a line from each instep to the heart through the legs and trunk. And then imagine the connection of the heart to the head. So you complete your little stick drawing. So imagining those 5 lines, the 4 limbs and the head connecting to the heart. And then imagine that, because it is, imagine that the cardiovascular system is much more complex, and imagine all the branches coming off those linear routes. Branches that then divide into smaller branches and twigs, so that you're picturing eventually the entire network of the cardio, the heart, vascular vein system, all the way to the cells in the skin. These little tiny journeys, the extraordinary nature of what one of my teachers, Gil Headley, calls the heart tree. You could think of your heart as the root or the trunk maybe of the tree, and the rest is this extraordinary network, the heart tree. And as you stand and begin to deepen your breath, could you take your little tree on a little sway? Actually, it's kind of a big tree. And you can do that with eyes open or closed, just allowing the body to sway around, as if you are kind of wafting in the breeze. And know that with each inhale, your heartbeat increases, and with each exhale, your heartbeat decreases. Just feeling into the magic of that the body uses your respiratory system to distribute the blood through the heart tree. And do deepen the breath if you feel able to alongside this swaying. And if you feel dizzy, please open your eyes. And if you still feel dizzy, don't do the movement or just imagine that there is movement. Back to stillness in the body, or at least not swaying anymore. And as you've established your breath, let the next inhale take the arms right up to the ceiling and feel the connection from the heart to the hands. And exhale, imagine drawing that connection from the hands to the heart down to the heart, like the heart talking to itself through your hands. And then inhale, arms come out wide from the heart to the hands, reaching. And then letting the hands connect back to the heart. One more like that, breathing in. And out. And keeping this sense of connection from the heart to the hands, begin to draw a big arc around you to the sides in a twist with the arms, as if you're holding maybe two little lotus blossoms on your palm and you're just showing them around to a crowd around you. Let the feet move as they need to and feel still this connection of heart to hands. And breathing. And let it get a little more dynamic, a little faster, and we'll let go of palms up and turn it into that twist that we sometimes do where we give the back a little smack. And the heel or foot that wants to come off the floor can do so. And now we're just thinking about moving the physical tissue of the heart and the arms and the ribs and the lungs. And do this with your eyes open and see what it's like to actually choose to consciously look around you as you swing, so that you're taking in certain parts of your surroundings rather than being a little unconscious of your surroundings. Heart into space. And then come back to stillness. And come back to closed eyes if that was okay for you. And connect in again to the heart tree. All the expansive extent of that system. All the way to the skin, the fingertips, the toes, the follicles of your hair. And then we're going to bend the knees and just have a little bounce just through the knees. You don't need to tap the heels or anything. And imagine a sort of dripping of stress or tension out of your fingertips, like some sticky goo might just drip off your fingers and leave you lighter and freer. Exhaling can really help with that detoxification, especially if we allow ourselves to maybe vocalize or sigh the exhalation. And then come back to stillness again and rise up on your toes and think about drawing the muscles of your thighs into the bone and lifting through your pelvic floor. And inhaling, come slowly down and try and curl just your 10 toes off the floor with the balls of the feet still on the floor. Inhale to rise up, feel the insteps all the way up to the heart and the head. And exhale, heels down, curl the toes, feel the insteps spreading. 2 more, exhale to lift up, feel the strength of the feet. And inhale to curl the toes. And as you lift up, try and think of the insteps lifting, but also the pelvic floor and the breathing diaphragm lifting. They're all related and coming slowly down. Turn your toes out, your heels in like a ballet dancer, and rise up again and feel this lift of the insteps, pelvic floor, and the breathing diaphragm. and inhale down. And exhale up. Feel that lift of all those diaphragms, sort of massage upward into the lungs and heart, and inhale down. And last time, exhale up. And inhale down. And then bring your feet back to parallel and stand on the outer edges of your feet and trot up and down your mat. And leave the arms nice and limp. Trotting up and down on the outer edges of your feet. A nice light, well, literally a trot. I'm just going to get my mat because I'm recognizing that my socks are the very similar color to my rug, which means that you can't see me. See my feet. Not willing to take the socks off yet. And then inner edges of the feet trotting up and down. So light-hearted, no heady concern about this movement, but just getting the heart rate up a little with this little light jog, while also working into the joints. Toes in, outer edges. Forwards and back is good for the bones and the muscles to give them that little surprise of walking backwards. And then toes in, inner edges. Little trot. And then toes out, outer edges. Breathing, you might want a bit of more of that kind of sighing out. Or maybe you don't want to sigh. And then toes out, inner edges. Little trot, soft shoulders. And then when you're ready, stand, close your eyes, feel your feet on the floor, relax your jaw. And again, feel that heart tree, the whole body, and the vibrancy. So we worked the upper body, and now we've worked the lower body. Just feeling all that connection. And then could you just bend the knees and press your feet into the floor? And it's hard to do it like this, but I just want you to think of pressing the feet down so that you feel an engagement of the muscles of your legs into the bones. So this is isometric contraction, where we move into muscular activation, but we don't then go up and down, which creates eccentric concentric contraction, where there's movement repeated. This isometric contraction, which is known to be, or at least one very robust study indicates to us that this is the kind of muscular action that's best for reducing blood pressure. And then rise up, and we're going to take our weight to the right foot and take the left foot off the floor if you can, or just the toes on the floor is fine too. And then bend the knee again and press down into that single foot if you can. If you can't, bring that other foot to the floor and just do what we did before again. Think of drawing the muscles of the leg into the bone, lifting the instep and the pelvic floor and the breathing diaphragm. For another 5, breathing 4, 3, 2, and changing legs with a bend in the standing knee just on the toes of the floating leg or the foot completely off the floor, and try and press that foot down into the floor, lifting through the pelvic floor. Slight grip with the toes will help you lift the instep also and let the leg be a bit stronger. Soften the shoulders, lift through the pelvic floor for 5, 4, 3, breathing 2, 1, rise up. And take the right foot forward and the left foot back. And pressing the feet gently into the floor with your hips facing front. Imagine that you're holding a couple of granite rocks in your hand, and you're welcome to do this with weights if you've got a desire to feel the weight literally. And lift those imagined granite rocks above your head. And notice that when you lift those rocks, there's more pressure into the feet, more of a sense of bones. And imagine the muscles wrapping into the bones. Slowly bend the right knee while keeping this sense of action in the legs. Soften the shoulders. Relax the jaw. Yeah, good. Breathing, that lift through the pelvic floor. Isometric contraction, isometric stretch, pushing the floor away from you. Long breaths in and feel that connection from heart to hands. And as you inhale next, imagine you're just dropping those bricks behind you, those granite rocks behind you, so you get softer. The angle of the chest is towards, say, the top of a window, if you have a window in front of you, or almost to the top of a wall. Inhale here. And as you exhale, straighten the right leg, rest your hands on your pelvis, and pivot forward into a nice pyramid pose, drawing the right buttock back and up, lengthening the back of the neck, and draw your elbows backwards, as if you're trying to bring your elbows to touch behind your back. They're not going to, but imagine that kind of trajectory. Just notice if in lifting the elbows you poke the ribs. You can still draw the elbows back without getting into a collapse in the spine. So think of the elbow drawing as being more back muscle activating than chest poking. And then push your feet into the floor. And we're going to just pivot. So turn the right toes in, the left toes out, and face the other end of the mat. You'll need to flip that right foot slightly out to the right so your hips face front. And then bend the left knee and take your granite rocks up. So in your warrior pose, you might choose to have your arms straight up, but make sure that doesn't create a knot up and around your ears. You might want them dropped down and straight. Or you might want cactus arms. Whatever you do, imagine you're holding some big rock in your hands and press into your feet, and imagine you feel the weight of that pushing down through the arms and feeding that energy and intention in through the chest, through the heart, and down through the feet. Breathing muscle to bone, little lift of the pelvic floor. Feel your strength. And on your next inhale, drop those little rocks behind you on a little arch. And exhale, straighten that leg, bring the hands to rest behind you. And tilting forward from the hip, draw the left buttock back, lift through the tail. Keep a little space at the front of your left hip for a pencil or something that you don't want to squish in the front of the hip there. Lengthen the back of the neck. And then draw those elbows up to the ceiling without flaring the rib cage. So it's through muscular activation of the back. And breathe, a little tone in the belly. And then press down through the floor, lift the heart, lift the chest, lift the head, and step to the top of your mat. Take a little breather there, just noticing what you notice. Lots of standing body awareness from the beginning of the class, repeated. Moments of change. And then when you're ready, could you get something that would work as a yoga brick? If you don't have a yoga brick, maybe a thick paperback book or a reasonably sturdy sort of but small cushion. I want something that's easy to hold but not too fluffy. And with your hands, just grip really tight with your fingers. And you might feel a lift of the pelvic floor. And inhale, relax. And exhale, grip your fingers as if you're trying to put like deep imprints into the block. And inhale, relax. Exhale, grip. Notice that the pelvic floor probably engages, maybe the belly engages, and the palms of the hands and the armpits and the chest and the heart. And inhale, relax. Sometimes we don't notice how much is engaged till we relax. 2 more. Exhale to squeeze. Feel that connection to the heart. Inhale to relax. And 1 more time, exhale to squeeze. Inhale to relax. Come to a wall. Just be careful that you're not going to slip. So if I did this with just my rug would slip away from the wall because we're going to be leaning against the wall. So you need either bare feet on a wooden floor or a mat on a fixed carpet or a wooden floor, so you're not going to slip. And you need enough wall space with the block, please, that you can slide down and bring yourself close to thighs parallel to the floor. Now, it really may not work for you to go that low. So as low as you can manage and still feel like you're in control of the situation. That's it. And then we are going to inhale, reasonably relax. Your thighs will be working anyway. And then exhale, grip the block, press down to your feet and push your back into the wall. Lift through the pelvic floor strongly. Inhale, relax. Exhale, grip the block, push through the feet, push the back into the wall. And inhale, relax. Exhale, grip, push the feet into the floor, push the back into the wall. You might find your heart rate is increasing. That's fine. Inhale to relax. If you want to make it slightly harder for the last 3, come down a bit lower. And exhale, press the feet, grip the block, push the back into the wall for 5, 4. Lift through the pelvic floor. 2, 1. Inhale, relax. I'm trying to sing to try and make it feel like it's easier. Exhale, grip the block, press down, push your back into the wall for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, relax. And last time, exhale, press down through the feet, lift through the pelvic floor. Don't let yourself push down through the pelvic floor. Navel to spine, push your back into the wall, grip the block for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slide up on an inhale. Woo, take a little breather. And then step away from the wall. And hold the block behind you. You don't need the wall now. Hold the block behind you and grip it maybe at about 40% of the grip that you did when it was in front. And bringing those elbows back towards each other, just like we did when we were in the pyramid pose. So we're bringing the elbows back without this kind of thing going on. So it's using the muscles of the back to bring the elbows back. Don't let the ribs flare at all. And that 40% grip, see, can you lift the block without flaring the ribs, without losing that spinal neutrality. Lift through the pelvic floor, feel that connection between the hands and the heart. It's almost like you're pulling the block apart actually while bringing the elbows back. Little lift through the pelvic floor. And we'll just isometrically hold that for another 10 seconds, breathing deeply. Relax the jaw and neck. 3, 2, 1, release. And just let the block drop if it's not something that's going to be problematic, and just let your arms float and notice the sensations throughout the body, but wherever you notice them most. And breathe. Notice what feels good, what feels vibrant, what feels dodgy. And then we will come to the wall again. just so that if we need it, it's there for us, the wall. You may not need it. We're going to take the hands behind the pelvis again and just let them kind of rest behind your pelvis, one palm resting in the back of the hand or vice versa. And you can choose if you want to interlace the fingers or hold the elbows or just have them on your hips. And we're just going to take the weight to the right and let the left toes tap the floor behind us. And that may be it for you in terms of the standing position, slightly bend the right knee. See how that is for you. And the next challenge could be that you lift the left toes just off the floor, and that may only last for a second or two before you need to bring them down, and you can play with them coming off and onto the floor again. Or you may be able to take that left ankle into your left hand behind you, and then you might want to take your right arm up in front of you, maybe to the wall or maybe not to the wall. And even if you're not holding the foot and the foot is on the floor, you can still have the right arm up the wall in front of you. Take the sternum, the breastbone, up the wall as if you're trying to beam a light with the chest diagonally up the wall. And take the heel away from the bum. Micro bend the standing knee. Little lift through the pelvic floor, maybe a lift through the instep of the standing foot. Lift through the diaphragms of the pelvic floor, breathing diaphragm, and even there's a diaphragm at the roof of the mouth, back of the roof of the mouth. Imagine that lifting. There's no need to come out now, and you might want to come out now. So either now or after another 2 or 3 breaths, entirely up to you. And when you do come out, wait and notice different sensations in the two sides of the body. And then when you're ready, take the hands behind the back and take your right toes back. Little micro bend in the standing knee, the left knee. Then this may be it for you. And if it is, you can play with lifting and putting that foot down and up off the floor, not in a particular rhythm, just when you feel like you can take that balance challenge to lift the toes to balance on that one foot. If you feel like holding the ankle, do. If you feel like taking the left arm up in front, either to the wall or not, taking the knee back, heel away from the bum, lifting through the pelvic floor, perhaps lifting through the instep of the foot, lifting through the breathing diaphragm, lifting through the roof of the mouth, and feeling that heart beaming slightly up the wall, and the connection from heart to hands and heart to feet and heart to head. The heart tree throughout the body, little bend in the standing knee. You come out when you want to, maybe 1 more breath, maybe 3 more, maybe no more. When you do come down, take a moment just standing and noticing. Probably quite the change in the body from when we first stood. Maybe a muscular tiredness, maybe a sense that you've almost like you've had a little jog, maybe. We're going to come to the floor in a sun salutation, and we're going to use the block while we're in the sun salutation. So if you want to bring it to the top of your mat, do now. And I'm very lazy. I try and use my foot to organize it because I can't be bothered bending over, which is quite the thing for a yoga teacher. So I'm aiming for you to have the block at its tallest setting. And if you find you have quite strong hamstrings and you find going forward quite difficult, or if you have osteoporosis, you might have to not be as lazy as me and make a higher platform, maybe a chair or an inverted T shape with your blocks. And you're going to start about 3 feet away from your blocks, maybe 2.5. That's probably 2.5. I'm never very good at guesstimating distance, about halfway along your mat. with the blocks at the front. And we're going to inhale the arms up. Exhale, bend the knees slightly and bring your fingertips to the blocks. And walk your feet so they're about mat width apart. Lift through the tail and bring the bum back towards the wall behind you. And you're looking for a sort of a sensation of a face down dog spine. You might need to take those blocks further forward to be able to have that reach in the arms and that armpit stretch and the sense of length on the two sides of the body. If you've osteoporosis, it's absolutely essential that you don't round the spine here. So you might need to bend the knees a lot if you have strong hamstrings, or maybe you'll need to turn the toes out, or maybe you'll need to put your hands on something higher. And while you're here, just have a little sway of your bum side to side, kind of like seaweed in a slow motion sea. So it's not a jerking of the bum side to side, it's a very wafty, soft, like you are, a slow motion wafting of fabric in an underwater current. Think of the fabric of your body, sheets of fabric. Inhale here, and as you exhale, fingers to the floor so that you feel stable enough to bring your knees down to the floor. And bring your bum back towards your heels, but a little elevated off your heels so you can bring the arms forward and come into puppy pose rather than a rounded child's pose. We're going to do one last bit of strenuous effort. You might want to fold something under your knees because you may have to stay on your knees for all of this. We're going to inhale forward into a kneeling plank and exhale back into that puppy pose or long child's pose. Inhale forward to kneeling plank, straight line from the knees to the head. So we're avoiding sagging the hips like this, micro bend the elbows. And we're just going to go back and forth. If at any point you want to take the knees off the floor in your plank, feel free to do so. And we're wafting. You could imagine it's also gentle wafting, though it's more effortful. We're going to inhale forward to our kneeling plank or knees off the floor plank and avoid this sagging of the hips. And exhale back into our kneeling dog, puppy pose, or long child. 3 more if you have it in you. Last bit of strenuous work. And the next time you get to your plank, can you come down to knees, thighs, belly, and rest your head on your hands. I'm just going to rearrange my camera angle while you rest for a minute on your belly. Any position that suits your head and your arms. And if being on your belly doesn't suit you, take a rest in a different position. Maybe you'd like to have a little sway of your bum side to side, or maybe you're just as happy to be still. And if you were swaying the bum, bring it to stillness now. And take your block. I'm hoping it's something light. If you don't have a block, that you have something light. Something heavy here would not work. Like even something like, just struck me that my little plimsolli runner here, that would work quite well if you don't have a block. Something light like a shoe, maybe not a big Doc Marten. And hold that block in your fingertips above your head. So though we're going to be working the muscles of the back behind the heart, I'm going to keep it that it's more about mobility than strength, but don't be surprised if it's muscularly tiring as well. I have my head elevated just so I don't muffle my voice, but for you, you can have the forehead on the floor or you can have the face slightly elevated, but we're not lifting the chin to look forward. So the back of the neck is very, very neutral. This may not be available to you. If not, just stay resting on your belly. Press the pubic bone down, lift the navel to the spine, and see if you can pass the block behind you and then bring it around in front of you again. So you're going to do this multiple times, keeping the arms floating, keeping the block above the floor. You'll find that it's about the shoulders. I just have to move over because I'm crashing into the curtain and making myself use my shoulders badly. If the floor is in your way to the side, sorry, if the wall is in your way to the side, you might end up compensating in the shoulder. So you do need a big circular space. 2 more in this direction. A little tone of the belly into the spine and the pelvic floor, or pubic bone down, and a lift in the pelvic floor, engagement of the glutes, and then change direction for 6 circles, keeping the arms elevated all the time if you can. Stop if you can't. This is not for everyone. If you've got shoulder injuries, this may be impossible for you. Might be something that's nice when the shoulder injury eases itself. And we'll do 3 more if you can. Or do part of it. Might just be out wide, behind, out wide, behind. The over the head bit is arguably the most difficult. And the next time the block comes up to the top, put it on the floor, rest your cheek on the floor if you can, and take your 2 arms behind you and let your shoulders flop forwards. And breathe your belly into the floor and feel the expansion of your back as you inhale, and the melting as you exhale. And then do whatever you need to do to carefully change the turn of your head. You might need a hand to move up beside you to help you lift that head, and then settle down on the other side if you can. And again, melt as you exhale and feel the back expanding as you inhale. And then when you're ready, come up to a teenager reading a book pose, where the forehead is in the hands and the book is between your elbows. And draw your shoulder blades down towards your hips, and draw your shoulder blades up to your ears, and slide your shoulder blades down your back under your skin towards your bum, and slide your shoulder blades up towards your ears, and slide the shoulder blades down again as you come up onto your elbows into Sphinx. And let those shoulder blades continue their gentle journey down towards your hips. And if this feels uncomfortable, excessively compressive or sharp anywhere in the body, go down to where you were before. If it feels fine, stay there. And then depending on your shoulders, either coming into seal pose with the arms going wider and the elbows lifting, navel gently to spine, or if your shoulders enjoy it, you can bring your hands further back towards the shoulder level and come up more into a traditional cobra. But think those elbows back and in, and the muscles of the back engaged, just like when we were doing, well, we've done a lot of postures and a lot of articulation of the elbows backwards by using the muscles of the back, not poking the ribs, but using the muscles of the back to draw the elbows behind you. Keep a little tone in the belly, tone in the lower abdomen. Keep breathing. Notice what you notice. Notice what would bring you more pleasure and less discomfort for another 2 or 1 or 3 breaths. And then peel your way down onto your belly again. Rest either your forehead or your cheek on the floor and give your bum that lovely wobble side to side. And then back to stillness, bend your knees and sway the 2 lower legs side to side. Or the feet, you might think of it as the feet, but not from the ankles, but from the knees, though actually it's from the hips. And feel that nice movement in the hip joints, the lower back. And then bring the legs back to the floor. And roll over, please, onto your left side. And rest your head on a low block. Any height of block, really, essentially, it just depends on your body. What I don't want you to do is have a block so high that your head is lifted up at an angle like this. But I also would prefer if your head wasn't falling down like this. So in the middle is neutral neck, more or less. Keep your knees together, but they're on a diagonal down from your hips a little. And the feet are back in line with the back of your pelvis. So you're creating a little V shape there that's quite related to your hips. And then take your right hand and put it on top of your head, just resting the fingertips under the left side of your head. We're going to inhale here. And as you exhale, lift your head, but try not to look down towards your knees, but rather lift your head and look still straight ahead of you. So it's a sideways lift, and then come slowly down. The hand is there to give a slight assistance to the head, but not that it's pulling the head, but that it's trying to reduce the amount of neck effort that has to be made. At the same time that you lift the head, could you lift the right foot, keeping the knees together? And exhale, lower the foot and head. We're gonna, exhale to lift, I should have said. Head and foot. And inhale to lower slowly down. This is a very direct exercise from Hana Somatics, and it's about allowing yourself to notice the muscles that are gliding short and gliding long to create this movement, and how you can make it smoother. Might be that it needs to be smaller to be smoother. And just thinking about the oblique abdominals on that top side, the top side armpit, a connection to the breathing diaphragm, all of which connect to the heart. Do 2 or 3 more. Exhaling up and inhaling down. You can do this without the arm. Have the arm reaching for the foot instead and resting on the hip. Just depends on what makes your neck feel not too vulnerable. Not my favorite somatic exercise, but I just want to get into those bits of the body. 1 more if you have it in you. And then rest down on the block. And take the knees up at hip height this time, and the feet about in line with the knees. And we'll do a very familiar twists, for which you don't need a block under the head when we open into the twist. So we can take the block out because we're not going to do the repeated movement. We're just going to slide the right hand forwards as if you're kind of trying to get your nose to the floor. And then inhale, bring that arm on a big trajectory up to the ceiling and onto the floor behind you. If that hurts your shoulder, keep your fingertips on your chest and just let the elbow hover in the air there. Or if you do have a big hovering of the shoulder and a lot of discomfort, put a block under your elbow so that you can actually relax there. If you can, turn your head to the right as well as resting the arm on the block or on the floor. And breathe long and slow, feeling that heart tree. Particularly here, I'm sure you feel more connected to that heart area in the upper body. Three more breaths here. And then roll onto your back and take a moment on your back. Any kind of symmetry, knees bent or straight, whatever you fancy, and just notice. Particularly, perhaps notice what feels good. And then bend your knees and roll to your right side. And for the first practice, we're having something under the head. The knees are on a diagonal from the hip, and the feet or the heels sort of in line with the back of the pelvis. The left hand can be on the hip or on the top of the head. And we're going to inhale here. And as we exhale, we'll lift the head up, but we're looking straight ahead, not down towards the knees. And exhale down. Inhale down, sorry. Exhale, lift the head on the foot, as if you're going to try and touch the elbow to the heel, but like a million miles away from that. And inhaling down. Let's do 4 more, and you're welcome to change the arm position to instead reach or rest it on the hip and slightly elongate it towards the foot as you lift. Noticing the muscles gliding short and long and trying to get rid of any stutters or judders. And then one more. And then resting the palm one on top of the other, bring the knees up in front of the hip, the feet in line with the knees. So you've got a kind of 90-degree angle situation with the knees. And then when you're ready, take that block out because we're going to be eventually on the back of the head. And just on an exhale, reaching that left arm forward, so you kind of roll to your nose. And then on the inhale, sweeping that arm up to the ceiling, either onto the floor behind you or onto a block or cushion if the floor feels too far away for your shoulder not to be very comfortable. And again, I'll be quiet to let you tune in for between 5 and 8 breaths, just depending on your breath rhythm. Three more breaths, if that feels good for you. Rolling to your back when that's done and taking a moment in stillness and symmetry on your back. And then when you're ready, bend your knees. And we'll get into a posture that I don't do as regularly as some of the other restorative postures, but it's a mixture of an inversion and a back bend. I'm going to teach it to you, and if it feels too much, just do legs up the wall. For it, you do need quite a lot of props. You definitely need one bolster if at all possible. And if you don't have a bolster, you could certainly use a rolled up yoga mat, and you don't need the mat under you. But what's also handy to have is lots of other props that can make a bit of a height towards the foot of your mat. And that height wants to be higher than the bolster. Now you could use cushions like that, or you could use multiple yoga blocks. This might get very squashy and then my legs would be too low. At the top of your mat, it can be nice to have where your head and shoulders are going to go. Just a folded blanket, just for warmth more than anything else. It doesn't want to be too bulky. Just a Setu Bandha type posture, just for some of you who are aware of what who might already know it and can hop in. So the idea is that you sit at the far end of the bolster, and when you lie back, your head will fall off in a way that we don't want it to stay. We want to push with the feet until, I'm gently pushing with the feet, until my shoulders and the back of my head are on the floor. So I don't want a backward falling of my head, but do lift your chin a little and don't pull your chin to your chest, especially if you have osteoporosis. And then the legs want to go higher than the heart, basically, is the plan, which is why we've got these cushions here. So you can see my legs are just about at the height of my heart. So these cushions are probably a little bit too low, but not a disastrously too low. Whereas if I get also my flat yoga brick, that will probably stop the squashing enough that I'll have just a little bit more solidity under the legs. You could do piles of books with a cushion on top. At any rate, my heart is higher than my head, so we're getting some of that benefit. The only time you would not do this is if you have high blood pressure that's not responding to medication. Fine if it's under control. You might even want to hire support. So I think the thing that usually goes wrong here is that we stay here with the head falling back, or we go way too far off and we're just in with the pelvis lifted. Now, it's not disastrous. You're still getting quite a lot of the intensity and the legs can still go up. So play around with where you're comfortable, but the further down the bolster you can be so that the bolster's at your kind of heart level, basically, would be preferable. But if it needs to be more at your pelvis, that's absolutely fine. The only thing to be aware of is that if my blocks for my feet are too far away, my knees will lock. And that's not good because we're going to be here for nearly 15 minutes. So you don't want the knees to lock. So you want the shins, the calf muscles to be fully supported so the knees aren't vulnerable. If that's too much for you, legs up the wall is a perfectly good alternative, with or without something under your pelvis to create a little back bend. Entirely up to you. And you have a choice to leave the arms down by your sides or to drape them up beside your head, which we'll get into that heart meridian a bit more intensively. And once you get there, endeavoring to soften. And while it would be nice for you to stay there, if it becomes problematic, please stop. So the heart meridian in Chinese medicine is twinned with the small intestine. And it is related to our creativity. It enables our creativity. It is connected to our ability to interact and communicate. And like many of our organs, the small intestine is about sorting what's important from that which can be discarded. And when the heart and small intestine meridian and organ systems are said to be, when they're ticking along nicely in terms of Chinese medicine, they're associated with feeling warm and nourished, having the ability to be nourishing, an ability to connect with our innate joy, to be able to intimately relate with all aspects of our life, the good and the difficult. The small intestine is associated with our intrinsic happiness. And just like the heart, our ability to intimately relate to all sides of our life, to connect with life, to notice the meaningfulness of life. And of course, when life is difficult, it will deplete the heart. And so there can be a difficult cycle between difficult circumstances creating burden in the heart, but also a burdened heart creating a dislike for people or circumstances. And in Chinese medicine, they work on stimulating the meridians of those organs that may be struggling. And the heart and lung meridians are all in the arms and chest. So we've done lots and lots of heart meridian stretches and movements. But then, as always, allowing for what is to be what is, and just not feeling anything needs to be fixed. Allowing softness in. Letting the body, the nervous system, the heart tree do its thing in that way that it does so well. And allow the physical body, the muscular layers to relax. It's one of the ways in which we can return to homeostasis of the nervous system as well as the physical body. If at any point you feel physically that this is done for you, please just slide the bolster further down and let it rest under your pelvis. Or go flat on the floor and put the bolster crossways under your knees. But if you're happy to stay there for another 5 minutes, please do. 2 more minutes here, connecting with your breath or recognizing that you need to come out of the pose. Of course, that's possible too. in order to come towards a more neutral place, just take a moment to notice your body physically, the shape it's making. And see if you can just bring a little tiny squirm maybe in the spine or the hips or the legs, just to see about the state of play and whether muscles are willing to get activated just enough so that you can safely bend your knees, put your feet on the floor. And if I was with you, I would get you to roll to your side and I would come and move the bolster myself for you rather than having you have to move it. So terribly carefully, either lift your spine if you feel you're not at the extreme of your back bend and pull the top end out to the side before you start to lower down. Or if you feel like you are at the extreme end of your back bend, roll off to your side. Then take the bolster, preferably onto your belly and chest, and then roll to your side and put maybe one of the cushions that you had under your feet under your head so that your head isn't on a downward trajectory. And then you can either hug the bolster with arms and knees, or you can keep the bolster just at the front body and put a cushion between your knees instead if the bolster feels like it's not suitable for you. If you happen to have a blanket free to throw over your body, even over your head, that might be a really pleasant thing to withdraw from the senses, to withdraw from your surroundings, darkening perhaps around the eyes. And we're in side lying Shavasana, a variation. There's lots of other ways you can use the bolsters and blankets and stuff, but trying to keep the feet, the knees from dropping together is why I've got the cushion between the knees, just so that you're a little more neutral in the pelvis. And this is instead of Shavasana, and if you don't like it, come into Shavasana instead. So in yoga, we talk about the layers of being, the body layer, the energy layer, the prana, the brain, or the bit of you that understands, the consciousness that motivates you to come to your yoga practice layer, the vijnana, Maya Kosha, I'm not quite sure actually how to pronounce it. And the heart layer, the Ananda Maya Kosha. And Ananda Maya Kosha is often sometimes described or translated as the bliss layer, associated with, when we manage to access that layer, a deep tranquility, experienced as contentment, attunement, and stillness, with no sense of lack, no sense of desire, no sense of fear, just tranquility. And sometimes we're lucky and we get little glimpses of that. Maybe a time or two in this practice. The human state is that these things come and they go. Notice your whole body, your heart tree, from the heart to the limbs, to the head, to the trunk, to the lower limbs, and all the little tributaries, branches, twigs, and leaves. And this extraordinary constant communication that surges and recedes and surges and recedes. If you would like to stay as you are, please do. And if and when you are ready to move on with your day, take some time to notice your body, the shape you're making, the support of the floor and the props, maybe the touch of clothing or the blanket or cool air against your skin. Maybe noticing what you can hear or what you can see, allowing your eyes to travel around the room. Maybe spending some time having a delicious yawn stretch in any way that your body draws you towards, until you eventually come up to sit, perhaps with a hand or two on your heart, or a hand on the belly and a hand on the heart, with a sort of sense of knitting yourself together again after allowing yourself to disassemble, to become more neutral, to become more passive in a way, so that you can take some of that peacefulness, that openness with you into your day or evening, but that you are also robust enough to deal with the world. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May you be well. May you be free from harm. May you progress where possible. May you find ways to sit at ease with the rest. And may you notice the beautiful, fluid, and strong nature of your heart. Om Shanti. Namaste. Rest well and look after your lovely heart. And see you soon.